Welcome back to another episode of Life with Your Dog. My name's Panos, and today we're going to be talking about enrichment. It's something that we have indirectly referred to in a lot of episodes, but today I thought we should directly hit it straight up in terms of what does enrichment mean and what does it mean in terms of the practical sense of how should we apply that in our everyday life with our dog. So enrichment is biological fulfillment. It's expressing natural behaviors. So our dogs are predators. They do prefer to chase things. They prefer to, when they do get a hold of that thing, to destroy it, to dismember it, so they can consume it instinctively. But now we have them as our companions in our backyard. And what do they want to do? They want to chew the wicker furniture. They're going to dig the holes. They're going to bark. They're going to try to get out to get your attention. They're going to fulfill their own natural instinctive behaviors to make their day go by and to feel good, to find their own biological fulfillment. So what we want to do is try to redirect some of that destructive behavior, especially when they're left unattended. And it's usually when we start to see the destructive behavior occurring, because of course, if we're there, we can then correct them in that moment to tell them that they're not allowed to do that, or we can manage them. But it's when we leave them alone is when we will find they do things that we don't like them to do. So using enrichment as a regular activity, especially for our young dogs and puppies, and also we can even incorporate our regular meals in the enrichment as well. So enrichment would be something, and a lot of people are familiar with what a Kong is, Kong. If you're not, look it up. It's basically a rubber toy that is like wider at the bottom and it gets smaller at the top and it's hollow on the inside. And there are different colors, which mean they're different grade of density. The black ones are most, they say, I won't say indestructible, but a lot harder to destroy. And like the red one, I think is the softest, or maybe I think the light blue is. And yeah, light blue is the softest. So for like little tiny puppies, you get a smaller one. For big Doberman, you give them a bigger one. So we'll talk about the Kong real quick. Is that how should you use it? At first, you want to make the Kong really easy for a dog to get their food out. So you can put a bit of kibble in there or a couple of Frankfurts or something that can easily come out. Nothing that's too sticky. Some people do prefer to use peanut butter. They can put it just on the top of the rim, just on the inside of the rim, so the puppy learns to like lick it out, or your young dog lick it out and push it around, and bits of food comes out. Making the enrichment toys at first very easy is important, so that our dogs find the value and the success with actually doing it, and or participating. Where a lot of the times, if we make it really hard for the food to come out, like we put a hard biscuit that just jams in there, if your finger can't get it out, your young dog that doesn't know the game won't get it. Eventually, over time, we will make it a little bit harder for the dog to get the food out of the Kong, and that way there it does give them something that's prolonged enrichment, prolonged activity for them to be doing. So let's give an example. And this is the best example, and I think I have said it before, but I was looking after a Doberman for about 2 weeks, and he was severely a pain in the butt. Like, he didn't like being on his own out in the backyard because he was very spoiled at home and things like that. But a big issue that I had, especially with the deep chested dogs, is that if they eat their food very quickly, I gave him his big meal that he ate for the day, and he ate that within like 8 seconds. So there I saw there was a few issues. If he eats that very quickly and then like decides to run around and bounce around in circles, his stomach can invert, and then things happen like the gastric gases or juices or whatever. Something happens within the stomach that they start to expand in their body, and we call it bloat because their body starts to physically bloat. And if we don't get medical attention soon, like within minutes, sort of thing, our dogs can die from that. So I see D'Artagnan eating the food so quickly. That was a Doberman's name, and when I witnessed him eating so crazy, I'm like, nah, next time I'm going to feed him, I'm going to give him a few Kongs. So I did have some extra large Kongs at home. I had 3 of them. So I was able to put his kibble. And for D'Artagnan, he was an older dog. He was like 2 years old at the time. He has played with Kongs before, so I could make it hard, and actually make it hard for a reason for this dog, because I wanted to prolong how long it took him to eat. I did that mainly for 2 reasons. Of course, I didn't want to eat so quick so we can prevent bloat, and also it gives him something to do. Instead of 8 seconds of eating his food, it took him 45 minutes. I put all of his kibble inside the Kong. I've cupped it with all of his mints. I put them in the bowl. I put them down. I told him to eat it. And 45 minutes that first time it took him. He was frustrated. He was bouncing and jumping on top of it, throwing it against the fence. But it was 45 minutes. I didn't have to hear him barking and whining for attention because it gave him something to do. So then what I did later on, as we were looking after him, again, he was on his own in this first couple of days until other dogs were going to come. So I would split his food instead of giving it to him all in one meal. I split it up throughout the day, so it gave him prolonged time to be doing stuff. And it did seem to be very effective. But you don't have to put their entire meal in there, which I do suggest you do. You can just put extra little bit of treats. So as I said before, a bit of peanut butter. You can even put like mince in there, and then if your dog's really well versed in what the Kong is, you can freeze the contents and then give it to them on a hot day, and it takes longer for them to eat it. So as I said, make it easy at first and then harder over time. Bones, antler, deer antlers, goat horns can also be forms of enrichment. So bones, how I like to give bones and feed my dogs is that is their meal for the day. So for example, once, sometimes twice a week, I'll give Spades his brisket bone or a chicken carcass or a turkey neck. So it's food that he can completely consume, where a lot of those like hard marrow bones, dogs can't really chew it. And the problem with very hard bones, like the marrow bone or and other bigger, tougher, like those soup bones, is that it can kind of like square off your dog's teeth. And it happened with my old dog Ace. He would chew on that marrow bone for so long that he had squared off canines and his nerve endings were showing at the end. So bone content, when it comes to like their feeding, and with Nookie, because she's a lot smaller, I only give her like a chicken wing, or I'll break up some of the carcass and give that to her, where for her to eat a brisket bone, she can choke on it, as her throat's probably only like a centimeter in diameter. So I don't want anything too big going in there and, getting stuck. So the bones would be like a once or twice a week event. That is their meal. It's good for their teeth. It gives them something to do for half an hour, and it's really good. Bones too often that they can consume can build up a lot of like calcium in their poo, and they can kind of get dislodged, and it causes constipation and things like that. So, but where the deer antler or the goat horn, those things are like longer lasting items. They can sit around for a very long time, and your dog can just plug away at it and just chew at it. And as it starts getting smaller or more destroyed, you chuck it out and you get a new one. And it's something that more people have been getting more regularly, and it has been a really good tool to use. So I would probably suggest with the deer antler or the goat horn, maybe present it and give it to your dog when you're out for the day. When you get back home, take it away so it kind of keeps its novelty. Where if it sits around all day, it's probably not good. And the thing about bones as well, if you feed too often, is that if your dog's full, he's going to go take his bone somewhere, dig it up, and then go for it later, where it can like harbor a lot of bacteria. If your dog resource guards and you walk past that buried bone where you don't know it's there, your dog like nails you for it. Or with other dogs running around, you just don't want that. And also if your dog's burying it, then he's full. So he should be eating it as food. You can get things as well. This kind of goes under enrichment, kind of goes along the same lines, but a slow feeding bowl can also be helpful if your dog does eat very quickly. So Nookie tends to eat very quick. So I've got one of those rubber slow feed bowls. I just put a feed in there, and instead of her eating it in 1 minute, maybe it takes her 3 minutes. So it could be harder for her, but I choose to use the slow feeding bowls as well. But it's, as I said before, there's different ones. There's one that look like mountain range, like it looks like the mountain terrain. So like it's very hard for your dog to get in there, and it could take them like up to 20 minutes to eat their food. It depends on how much your dog wants the food as well. If your dog's very fussy and you make it even harder, then they're going to try even less to even eat their food. So think about those things as well. Now, I get this all the time. People say, I give my dog toys and he keeps on destroying them. And the point of giving toys is for them to destroy it. So I would suggest not buying expensive dog toys, like soft toys from like the pet store probably, and maybe getting more cheaper toys, like maybe like the Reject store or the second, or what I used to do with Spades and Ace when they were really young, is because if I left them in the courtyard where I would live with my parents, they would like destroy the plants and they would like do God knows what. So my mum's friend worked at St. Vincent de Paul, and if you don't live in Australia, that's basically like a charity where people like bring all their stuff so we can they can resell it to make money for their charity. And there was like 3 massive bags of stuffed toys that my mum's friend couldn't get rid of, so she just gave it to us. And basically, I just gave him a stuffed toy every day or every day or two, and that allowed them, like, I'd come home and the thing was destroyed, and that was good because the more they destroyed that stuff and had fun with it, then they didn't have to destroy too many of our things. If I knew what I knew now 10 years ago, I probably wouldn't just leave them free roaming, and I'd probably set it up and manage it a little bit better. But we learn over the years. But one thing I did do back then was expect them to destroy the toys instead of destroying our things. If your dog is swallowing the stuffings and like the little buttons of like the teddy bear eyes, or any contents of any toy, then we have to manage them in a little bit of a different way, and that goes outside